See. Hello, everyone. We're going to start in about 2 or 3 minutes, but I wanted to thank you for joining us this evening. Okay, going to give it about 30 more seconds. Thank you for your patience. Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining tonight's session, where we're going to be talking about writing resumes for undergraduate students. So whether you are creating your first resume or have specific questions about creating a resume for a certain job or internship, this is the type of workshop that's for you. We're going to cover a few slides, and then I'm happy to answer questions you have. Throughout this evening, if you want to pop questions into either the chat or into the Q&A, you can do so. In the Q&A, if you want to be anonymous, you can do that as well. And those questions will be answered at the end of our session. So tonight we have a great mix of attendees representing all of the colleges, SPA, SIS, SOC, CS, and COGOT, and a variety of majors. So this information that I share with you this evening will be relevant for all of those majors, and no matter what year you are in school, freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior. So my name is Felicia Parks, and I am part of the Career Center team that I work with School of Communication. And my background as a recruiter in a couple different fields, both business related and also communication, is part of why I'm sharing tonight about resume writing. So on to our next slide. So let's think about the goal for your resume. Some of you are joining tonight's session because you met with an employer at the job and internship fair we had on September 27th, and you're ready to apply for that remote, hybrid, or in-person opportunity that you learned about. Or maybe you're gearing up for the internship next spring or the following summer. Lastly, you could be a December 2023 or May 2024 graduate, and you want to be considered for an upcoming part-time or full-time job. So no matter the reason, please take a moment to answer my question. What is your goal for tonight? Internship, perfect. Thank you. Full-time jobs. Fantastic. So internship, full-time jobs, wonderful. Anybody else wanted to share in the chat, feel free to do so. Okay, fantastic. I had one in the Q&A. Thank you so much. So what exactly does a resume do, right? We know that it invites the employer to take a look at your skills, but it takes them on a journey. It's giving them a clearer picture as to the direction you'd like to go in a professional setting. So your best resume will brag about your education, your experiences, your skills, and more. Now, keep in mind that the document will be scanned physically or by an applicant tracking system in mere seconds, and a decision may be made on the spot if it's a job, an internship fair, or networking event, or even the system into the yes or no category. Yes, as into going a little bit further and asking you more about your experiences, or a conversation, and it ends up in the no pile. Now, we do understand the role the resume plays with employers, but let's take a look at this one and chat about the elements of this key document. You'll see the sections that I've highlighted on here that can be found within the Prepare for Your Search section of American University's Career Center page, this template. So we look at how we've highlighted academic training, that's where education is listed. We describe experiences and volunteer experiences, which can be in the same category under experience. We want to showcase our involvement with volunteer opportunities or things we do on campus. So that's a different section that does not have description as here. We've displayed honors, awards, special recognition, even course projects. So just as a reminder, as a former recruiter, it took me just seconds to glance at a resume and see all the relevant skills that see, did it match the position I was trying to fill? So within your 5-second glance, think about what jumps out to you and how would others view the consistency of the fonts, the bold, the italicized text or formatting? And then does it have enough white space so it's not overwhelming or intimidating for someone who's taking a look at the resume? So as we do a little bit of a deeper dive into the header, in addition to your name and maybe your cell phone number, I don't know too many people with a landline anymore, your header should include a professional email address, not that fun one you had when you were in the 3rd or 4th grade. And you can use things like stapler at american.edu, or if you have the letters and the numbers, that's totally fine too. Other items you might include would include your current city and state, a professional website if you have it. Maybe there's a blog that you write for, social media handles, and LinkedIn page. Now, you don't necessarily have to have a photo as it is displayed here, but sometimes with creative resumes or those that are going into, I like the journalism roles, they will include their photo. Now, here comes education. Education should include the school that you're currently attending, such as American University, and then it's followed by the name of the community college or your study abroad experience. Basically, your entire resume is written in reverse chronological order. So you start with the most recent experience and you work your way back. If you're a first-year student, only a first-year student, you may want to actually list your high school, because that may be the only place where you have your honors, your GPA, some awards, and more. But no matter which one you list, each institution should include the city, state, your degree or diploma level, if you have a major and minor, and you can put an estimated date of graduation. You don't have to necessarily have to say the word expected. Just putting the year would give the employer an idea of your possibly applying for an internship, part-time job, or full-time job. So how many of you are familiar with transferable skills and how it plays a role in your resume? So the National Association of Colleges and Employers, formerly known as NACE, actually polled employers across the US and said, what are the key skills you look for in candidates? And these 8 competencies are the ones that most entry-level positions are looking for. So when you take a look at this sheet that we have here, I want you to think about how would you describe your experience, and maybe it was volunteering in the neighborhood, maybe it was a course project, but you want to talk about your ability to communicate with others, how you've been part of a group, completed a class assignment individually or with a group as well, and demonstrate your ability to ensure equity, inclusion, and outline your knowledge of technology and all these fun things. Most of the time, these skills can be explained within those course projects. Maybe you're involved with student organizations on campus, or you volunteer in the school and community. But these things count as experience, and it will help you get your foot in the door if that's where your experience is coming from, the course projects and student involvement, until you gain some additional experience. So, how many of you have heard of reverse editing? So what happens is you take a look at a job posting. This is one that I actually pulled from an actual journalism.job site. Within your experience section, we're going to still write in reverse chronological order. Sorry about that. And then we're going to start thinking through how do we list that information. And information listed will include, things that you pull from the job description. So if you're saying to yourself, I want to get my resume to stay to one page, which is the preferred amount, try describing your experience as it relates to the positions that you're applying to. Does that mean sometimes you have more than one style resume? Possibly, but you're not always creating one totally from scratch. This technique really helps a lot. And then in this example, I took time to highlight what I thought might be keywords that an employer may take a look at, or maybe they're pulling it from an applicant tracking system. And so you want to make sure those resumes, if you have relevant experience, is included in that actual resume experience section. So we've all heard of gimmicks, and we want to stay away from that. Your goal is to keep your resume memorable, of course, but putting it on pink paper or having large print, overly using graphics or pictures. Or I've also noticed sometimes candidates have tried to hide the position description in white text behind their resume so that it shows up in the applicant tracking system, and then they don't have the relevant experience, and so it still gets kicked out. But what you could include in your resume are buzzwords for the industry that you're going into. This happens to be the Talk Like a Pro, appendix, or sections within the Vault guides. And this is the one from advertising and marketing. So if you're unable to locate any resources that we talk about tonight in Handshake, definitely reach out to your career advisor, and they're more than happy to share various handouts with you. So what about the beginning part of those phrases? Action verbs. So there are lots of action verbs that you can pick from that demonstrate your experience, and you don't have to overuse them. You can kind of spread the love and use different action verbs that are here. And you see, this is my preferred list of ones to not include that I have listed here. So stay away from responsible for and supported and assisted. I call them my sad little verbs. And so we have lots of verbs to pick from, and we have that in the packet that we're going to be sharing with you via email tomorrow. So here we're going to go back to that position we looked at earlier, applying for like a Capitol Hill reporter position. And the header I have here is relevant experience. I didn't say work experience, so it's not necessarily paid, and it could be something I've volunteered for, but it helps the actual employer to see what skills you have to offer. And it helps you as an applicant to kind of showcase your experience. So in this particular instance, the verb is underlined just so you can see I use different verbs, but you do not have to underline the verbs in your resume. But each bullet is here, not paragraphs, written with these action words. The accomplishments are clearly described. A nice way to look at each accomplishment or line and say, does it answer who, what, when, how, and why? I'm making it measurable because you're trying to target these keywords and things that will stand out. Once you get used to this style of writing for your resume, it'll be really easy for you. But you may be saying to yourself, well, Felicia, I've had a lot of jobs that have nothing to do with my field, and I had them too. Whether I was a babysitter or a cashier, or I worked at a restaurant. So you may be thinking, how do I describe those experiences? Well, you can take advantage of incorporating any type of transferable skills in some of these other skills that are listed in these commonly described experiences. Our amazing peer advisors wrote these for you. You don't have to have as many bullets. We just wanted you to have opportunities to pull what you think is relevant, and you'll get a copy of this handout. It's about 6 or 7 pages long. So almost every position that you could think of, we have a description for it. So hopefully this is really helpful for you. As we're getting kind of close to our last couple of slides here. So here's a checklist. This resume is kind of walking you through how important it is to emphasize, your action verbs, your industry buzzwords, Keep those margins at least 1 inch, no smaller than that. We want some white space there. And you definitely want to make sure it's one page. And then, think about the font style. Some font styles are really fatter than others. They take up a little bit more space. So try to keep some of the resumes that you write out in Times New Roman, Calibri, or Arial. And then those bullets, not paragraphs, makes it easier for someone to scan the page. And don't forget the skills section. That's so important. And we don't write Microsoft Office, we write Microsoft Excel or PowerPoint because maybe there's a few in that extensive toolkit that we don't know quite yet. And then other skills could be your language proficiency, or maybe use some other type of software. And then if you save it in a PDF format, it kind of freezes it as far as the layout. Sometimes employers will have an applicant tracking system. You have to copy and paste your skills and your experience into a different box. That's because the PDF is more like a graphic and they're unable to read it. But you can definitely upload that. So speaking of resources, some of the things you may find helpful is that on our website, we have these different templates. It's a great way to start because the first page walks you through how to make each accomplishment measurable. So that's something you can go and take a look at. And then you also can see templates based on your year in school, if you're a first year student, second year student, a graduate student. So we have tons of examples for you to take a look at. And in fact, speaking of examples, the chronological resume that we've been talking about is also followed in here based on a federal resume. So all those rules about one page, or sometimes I talk about not being repetitive, totally goes out the window with federal resumes. You need to describe not only your experiences, if you had it in every job, every single time, you're often including the full address, physical address, your supervisor's name, your start date, the amount you were paid in the beginning, how much you were paid if you were promoted. So that's a little bit different. And then for those who are interested in a creative style resume, Canva is a great tool for you to take a look at and see, how do I create a resume that incorporates color or pictures or other graphics? Some additional resources you may be thinking about is logging into Handshake. Most of you all learned about this event through Handshake or through our newsletter, so thank you for being here. And part of the resources we have in here is the resume guide, and that's one of our two-sided documents. We have the templates. We also have those wonderful peer advisor written, commonly described experiences. Another resource, LinkedIn Library. So even if you don't have a LinkedIn account, you can go into sign into Aladdin, go to the library database, scroll down to the letter L, click LinkedIn, and LinkedIn Learning, then from there on, has all these amazing videos. They could be 2 hours long in length, but you can go right to the section that says, what do I put in my header? And, it helps those of us who are visual learners because they have a video playing. They also have a transcript. I think these videos are amazing and you can learn so many great things in addition to the resume. So now that you've learned so much about the resume, you're thinking, well, who will take a look at it? We offer drop-in advising with our peer advisors right in our Career Center. We're on the 5th floor of Butler. So that's the way you can pop in during those hours and meet with our peer advisors. Or you can pop over to the library on Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays and meet with the career advisors in room 6. So that's helpful. And speaking of career advisors, here's our entire team. So based on whatever your major is, this is the list. There's a different set of advisors if you are a COGOT student or are you in the School of International Services and you're a junior and senior. So those schools sites, you can go directly there and you'll see who's available. And COGOT also has drop-in advising through their career consultants or peer consultants, I believe. And at the moment, SIS is doing all of their appointments as drop-in. So it gives you a lot of opportunity to decide, tomorrow I want somebody to look at my resume and pop in. Or you can schedule a 30 or 60-minute session with your respective career advisor. And that's easy to do in Handshake. You can actually click into Handshake. Once you click appointment, it would automatically come up as this is your advisor. So that's it for the slides I have. I want to make sure I open the floor and see if you had any questions because we covered a lot about resumes. So we've already answered this question, but it wasn't technically a question. So great. What questions do you all have about resumes? And if you type them in the Q&A, I believe everybody can see them. If they're not, if you can't see them, I can read it out loud. If you type them in the chat, everybody can see the questions. So a question for you all, how many people have their resume as one page? And you can just kind of raise your hand. And if it's more than one page, that's fine. We can help you with paring it down. So if you don't mind me saying your name, Thomas asked a question of, if you're looking for a full-time job, do you put experience over education, even if you haven't graduated? So Thomas, that is a great question. Sometimes our experience speaks volumes over our education because maybe we've changed fields. I'm an example of that, where my undergrad degree is in public relations and journalism, but when applying to the Career Center here as an advisor, I thought my experience was going to be more important. So I spoke about my role as a recruiter and my role as being a director of our national recruiting team. So if you think that your experience speaks more to the skills that the employer is looking for, you can start with that. That's the fun thing about resumes. The order you put it in is completely up to you. Because I am the SOC advisor, I work with a lot of students that are going into journalism roles, and their skills section is first after their name, because if they're editing videos, that's going to be one of the most important things. So thank you for letting me know your question. So I'll move on to Sam. And you say, what if you have a few job experiences? Sam, that's totally okay. I'm not sure if you've had this experience so far, but if you're involved with the student organizations on campus, that counts as experience. So if you work with the Kennedy Political Unit or KPU, and you invite different speakers to campus, you can talk about that. Maybe you're part of the SPA leadership program, and they're doing things a lot very extensively in the neighborhood and doing other activities. You can talk about that as well. So your job experiences aren't necessarily things that you were paid for. It's where you had to show up on a particular day at a particular time and engage with people for a particular reason. And what does that look like for you? It varies. It could be the projects, it could be your volunteer work, it could be things that you were doing with an organization. So please make sure you think about all those transferable skills, because it's going to help people to see how well-rounded you are. So you may as well brag about them. So thank you for asking that question, Sam. All right, we have one from an anonymous attendee. How many relevant courses or projects should you include? I love that question, because sometimes I talk to students and they're thinking, oh, I'll put 5 classes on there. Because you're given a description, as you saw on our template. I'll share with the template in just a second. I'll show on the screen. Our template will show you that this is an opportunity for you to give more details about your experiences within the class, not the description that you saw on the website. So you definitely want to make sure you have that listed. And so I will pull this up for you so that you have an idea as to what I'm explaining. So I'm going to share another screen with you all. And this is the actual different documents that you'll get: the common student experiences. You'll also get the undergraduate resume template and some of the vault guides information, just to kind of remind you. So this particular template here is showing you how you can talk about specific and relevant accomplishments and make sense. The second page is a sample of it filled out. So in this example, these are 3 course projects that's relevant for that position. So let's say Stephanie is applying for multiple positions. What might be helpful is if Stephanie saved the resume as Stephanie R. student underscore whatever that first company name is. And then the second one could be another company name, because maybe there's a course that Stephanie switches out. So instead of using politics in the United States, maybe they use intro to production. So you want to think about, like, how do I keep it to one page and also have relevant experiences? So you can see in here, this is the course projects that are described, not the one from the academic book, and also study abroad. And then I mentioned earlier about the SPA leadership program. So this is a great opportunity to show you about these additional experiences, is that they don't have to be paid opportunities. You were responsible for something and you should brag about that. So great question. Thank you for asking that question. Okay, so some additional questions for you all. How many of you have heard of the vault guides? Did you know that these amazing terms existed and you are Feel free to raise your hand. So these guides, sometimes they're called appendix or talk like a pro, but they're in the back of the vault guides, and we're happy to share them with you depending on what it is. But what it happens is it gives you the term for that particular industry, and it gives you the definition. So in case you forgot what an answer print was or what an audience means for your particular field, because in television is different than in marketing versus something else, then those guides are going to be here for you as well. And then for that federal resume format, that will be shared with you as well. And then when you get to your skills, I mentioned earlier, and this is a little smaller on this screen because I enlarged on the other one, you've all these amazing verbs that you can actually include. So you definitely want to do that. So you want to make sure you have copies of that. So there's a question about what is a vault guide. So the vault guides are these books that are written by industry. So there are a lot more pages in the section that I have saved in my Canvas course. So the vault guides will talk about here's what it's like to work in brand awareness or marketing. The biggest tool that I like to use it for is the glossary, because it has all these great buzzwords to try to include in your resume. So that's picked up by the applicant tracking system, and it's also picked up by the employer that's taking a look at your resume and they're like, wow, this particular candidate knows my field, they understand what I'm saying. So that's why I use the vault guides. And so when you go into your Handshake account, there are several resources that are listed. And so you'll be able to see those different resources that are there. So for example, on our Career Center page, one other thing I wanted to mention is that we have an extensive list of YouTube videos. And so when you get to the videos, you'll see a list. I like to go over to the playlist because some of the things that's going to be helpful is when you see them kind of grouped together. And just to brag a little bit about how amazing our team is, we have quite a few videos and a lot of these playlists that's going to be helpful for you. So specifically, if you aren't familiar with how to use Handshake, our peer advisors went through each section to give you information about that. And then there's lots of videos on like how to use LinkedIn because the tool is constantly evolving. But one thing that may be helpful for you all is this Introduction to Career Center Resources and Services. We were challenged a couple of years ago to look at ways to make our videos for 3 minutes. And then they gave us some leeway and said you can make it 7 to 10 minutes with the most recent challenge. And so this past, I guess it'll be about a year, this past December, we all created different videos. So I have one on here about writing the best resume, and it's in 7 minutes or less. So if you definitely want to take a look at that. So the Vault Guide can be found within the resources tab of your Handshake account. And if you don't see it, every school has different resources. So for example, I mentioned earlier that I am the SOC advisor. So some students will log in and they would be able to see link to TV jobs. If you are just an undergraduate student, maybe you'll see the undergraduate resume. But everyone would see, no matter what year you are, graduate, undergraduate, or alumni, they would see access to Big Interview because that's an actual resource that's for all students and alumni to learn how to use AI technology. So if you don't see the vault guides in your resource tab based on your school, definitely message your career advisor and say, I'm looking for the vault guide. Do you happen to have one on this field? Now, Vault did not produce a significant number of guides. I think there's like maybe 10 that I have, and they focus on television and news writing. I have one on human resources. I have one on information technology. So I'm not sure how often they still produce the printed copies. And then you also can go into the library database. That's one of the things that should be helpful too. If you don't see it in Handshake, the library database has an extensive list of things. And some of those things are all the vault guides. So hopefully that helps and answers your questions. So one other thing I want to make sure, if by show of hands, do you know where the Career Center is located? I mentioned it a little bit earlier, and you can put it in the chat. Okay, Greer, do you know where the Career Center is located? Butler Pavilion. Perfect. And we're on the fifth floor. We're the only office on the fifth floor. So if you end up getting off the elevator, you see multiple floors, you're like, oh, this isn't the right floor. And I know that we're fused together with another building. So because we're fused together with Butler Pavilion, Mary Graydon Center, and I used to say right above the bookstore, but now they moved to the tunnel. So we're on the fifth floor. Does anybody know how to find the SIS Career Center if you are a third or fourth year student? So here's a great hint. It's in the SIS building and they're doing drop-in advising. So that's a way for you to pop in for that. And then there's the COGOD Center for Development. You'll get a chance to meet with the actual career advisors or peer consultants. Okay. So again, my amazing colleague is going to edit the video that where I presented today and also include the handouts that we talked about. So the ones you saw for the resume template, in addition to those commonly described experiences, which is going to make life so much easier for you, those action verbs, all that will be emailed to anyone that's registered for tonight's event. So you definitely want to do that. If for some reason you did not register for tonight, please shoot me an email. And my email is parks, PARKS, @american.edu. And we will make sure you'll get the actual documents and everything sent to you, including the actual video of tonight's session. So if there are any other questions, I'll give it a couple seconds to see if there are any questions. I'm popping into the Q&A box as well as the chat box, kind of going back and forth. Want to give you a chance in case you're typing away. Okay. Well, I don't see any questions here, but I want to applaud each and every one of you for joining tonight's session and getting your resume prepared for that next part-time job, full-time job, internship, or fellowship. And maybe you'll get an opportunity to share a copy with your peer advisor or career advisor in the near future. Take care and have an amazing evening.